Okay, so this is the Habitat weekly issue triage meeting for the week of April the 11th, 2017. I've posted the query into general in case you want to follow along yourselves or if you want to see what it is that we're talking about. And I'll go ahead and share my screen here and we can kind of work through it real quick, theoretically. Okay. Yeah. Sweet. Does that look right?
Well, I'm only shocked that there's so few.
Well, so there should be few because we've been kind of we've gotten to the point where we're caught up. So everyone got fewer and fewer to triage, which is great. All right, cool. Now that's actually set to present to everybody. So those of you that are watching on YouTube or are going to watch this later on, hopefully you'll be able to see everything okay. So we'll go ahead and start. I think that we actually talked about this last week. We'll go ahead and start with 1993 here. And I'll give everybody a second to read the history and see if we may not have anything to do with this right now. I think that where we landed on this last week was we decided to keep it open for now just because Justin was going to open up separate issues for each of these. And I think we have links to 2 of those with 2003 and 2002. But I'm not certain if he's going to add anything else. And it looks like Steven's not on. I actually haven't talked to Justin this week yet, so I'm not sure where he's at on it. But I'm pretty sure we can just continue on past this. Unless
there is an issue or a PR that's got some partial work. I think it's on the binding, but.
Okay. Is it something worth updating here, or should we just wait and check the other issues first?
Quickly check, but I think we can probably move.
All right.
Yeah, it was a PR. That's maybe why.
Whoop, whoop.
Oh, this is exactly what I want.
I think it was just some like debuggability in the binding stuff, so that like when something's not binding yet, it basically just out, right
out,
which is nice.
Yeah. So those other 2, I think we've already triaged them. I believe they've already been accepted, but you can definitely click through the link 2002 and 2003, and there'll be more information there. Oh, this looks like this might be related as well.
Ah, yeah, that's another part of it. Yeah, we can do a better job at definitely the bind part of that identifier, like the part before the colon. We can do a better job at validating that. Oh, yeah, I think as I said.
Oh.
This one looks directly related to the PR that got filed this morning.
I think that's
Do you know
right.
what PR number that was?
2076? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is right. This is all.
Yeah, it's linked there. Somebody referred to it the right way. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so theoretically, he opened it and then he also wrote it, which is fantastic. So I'll go ahead and put this in.
I know. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
So this is gonna, this will lead to like, I'm hoping some really kick-ass demos and ways of using Habitat. So you can say that this service needs this binding, but if it's not fulfilled yet, kind of like the leader election, it should just sit there and say, I'm waiting for the service group to pop up, which means you can start to do stuff like boot your app tier maybe before the database is there, or just start them all at once. And then once the database is available, then the app will have its service binding requirement met and then it starts. So it's going to make things really awesome.
That'll be beautiful. All right, we'll move on to 2058, which is another one that that Justin opened for us.
Yep, this is a straight up bug that I forgot to file an issue because, yeah. So I'm glad he did. We can fix this, and we should. Right now, our the way that this is working is we have sort of an intermediary kind of spec file on disk, like a little tonal representation of what the service needs to boot into. And I actually have some unit tests that specifically prevent this flag from being serialized in and deserialized out, which is now actually it was right at the time, and the way we did refactoring is totally not correct right now. So it's probably a matter of like deleting a couple of those tests and doing an extra assertion. So there's already like the unit tests are ready for that. That's not going to be too hard to do, but we should definitely do that.
Yeah, definitely. All right, great. That was easy. Pretty much all the ones that Justin puts in are easy because they're right on point. All right, 2062 is the next. Give everybody a second to read this in case you haven't.
So I remember this came up in this before Joshua filed this issue. He brought it up in Slack last week, and so the idea being that, you know, like a lot of different package managers, you can target multiple sources or feeds or whatever for packages. So like the use case that he presented on Slack, I think was, user A has a private depot, and what they want to be able to do is say, hey, I have these dependencies, and if those dependencies aren't found in his private depot, that they would fall back to the public depot, and he doesn't want to have to might not want to mirror the public depot in his private depot. And there's really there's two ways, or two primary ways that most package managers seem to tackle this, at least in my experience. One is kind of why can't I think of this name? Basically the idea is that you've got essentially the mirroring approach. So you could mirror or proxy another repo, and if it's not in your private repo, then they get copied from the public repo into your repo. But to the client, it's transparent. The other way, which is kind of a faster way, and if you don't have your own depot or have mirroring set up, this is just it's simpler, but not necessarily as ideal, which is basically to be able to, from the client, say, and have a parameter like an environment variable or some kind of a setting off the client that says here's a list of the different depots that you can hit, and in this order, grab packages as you find them. So if you don't find them from source A, then fall back to source B. If they're not there,
that's
then
what we do with Supermarket.
What's that?
That's exactly what Supermarket does, is you can specify different supermarkets in a Burks file and the order, and if it doesn't find in the first one, it'll go to the second, and so on.
Yeah, like NuGet does the exact same thing. I think Ruby Gems has a mechanism for doing that as well. So that would be the thing that came up in the Slack discussion, was that would be easy. That might not be something that we prioritize, but certainly something that we could open up for help wanted. So Joshua says, okay, I'll go ahead and said I'd go ahead and open up an issue. This is it.
So I have a couple concerns with this for a few different reasons. At a minimum, I would rather that we, at least team-wise, that we don't start tackling this until we've done the channels work, because we're potentially have some user impacting like UX changes. I'm not entirely convinced that the URL is the way that we specify a channel. Like, it might be, but it might not. And I want that more than I want like multiple depots. It also affects the supervisor, and there's a few interesting things about the way where our clients are implicitly trusting a source. Like right now, there's only one depot, so there's one thing to trust. When you start trusting more than one thing, that you could potentially be getting keys. Are the keys the same from both places? There's a couple interesting things that, yeah, this is good for discussion. I tend to agree with Joshua's point of like the best solution is probably that pull through proxy one. It's definitely the harder, but I feel like I could think about it myself better once we've done the channel work, at least on the client side.
Yeah. So for now, is there any opposition to just dropping this in help wanted for now? I really doubt that. At some point, we're going to have to tackle some of these use cases, but I don't imagine it's on the immediate. And I would also be kind of surprised if a community member would undertake this work.
So yeah, my guess I'd kind of agree is at the moment we're not officially even supporting you running your own private depot. It's kind of like, do it if you can figure it out right now. We will eventually sweep around and make that like a nice experience. So it's going to be, I think, few people who are going to have this particular problem right now. Future worlds. Sorry, no.
Almost literal scars from when Supermarket was in this state with people trying to run it privately and then do particular things with it. So yeah. I would personally recommend holding off on this until we had the private depot in a better state.
Yeah, like we don't really even have a good way of thinking it through right now. Like we barely have acceptance and production at the moment. It's certainly not the same version of both. So there's even version differences. I don't even want to think too deeply.
So I guess the question is, should we close it or should we leave it open with help wanted?
I think we can have it open. I think you could put the discussing flag on it for sure. That as a I think this will be a future need, and it's going to become more. I think it will be upvoted more. I can't remember. Maybe Ian, do you remember? Have we got our user voice stuff together?
I do not know, actually.
Okay. So I know that we're trying to move, if we haven't already done this, and I've been sort of out of touch, so I might have missed it, that eventually we kind of do want a place where people can place these sort of it would be nice if requests. So we may not have that at the moment. If we do, we could eventually potentially move that to a place like that and to see if this is a common need right now. I just, we happen to know Joshua and probably the context that he's working in. And he is probably by definition a massive power user right now. But I want this myself because I want to run a depot at home and point it to an upstream and have really super fast package downloads. So I totally want this too.
All right, sweet. So any further discussion, you can definitely jump in there. The user voice stuff, I'm not really sure where we landed on that. There was a point where we were talking about we were going to have a page on the website. It was going to, you'd be able to put in suggestions there. Right now, obviously, all of those RFC type feature things are just going through GitHub, and that seems to work okay. So I don't know where it will go, but
there is a thing planned for that actually. A page on the website for capturing just that kind of feedback. I don't know the specifics of it, but I know it's something that I've been asked to start to look into too. So
sweet, excellent.
So, we'll figure it out, but yeah, it's coming.
Will that feed into our ProdPad stuff?
Yes, it's somehow ProdPad integrated. Yeah.
Sweet.
I don't know specifically yet, but yeah. Yeah.
We're also looking at ways to expose our roadmap and all of that. And I think Liz is working on some of that right now. It should be basically ready to go, but Liz was making some changes before we can turn it on and make all that public too. So that's coming. 2063 from Tasha. Oh, right. So this is the example, actually. I don't know if this is going to work or not. I can try and see if it'll pop up. Okay. So we have, this is the ProdPad integration that we're talking about. And what we're wanting to do basically is get our roadmap and user stories, I don't know, quote unquote user stories or whatever, exposed into GitHub directly. Since GitHub is where we're doing all of our work and where we're tracking our projects and everything, this was basically an example for Tasha of what that integration looks like. So she is basically able to open up a thing on ProdPad, and it just directly opens an issue in GitHub and then links back to the ProdPad so that you can kind of go and see the context of that stuff. We're going to have some things around this in the future. Like, part of the reason that I've been focusing the last 2 days on the blog work, like I said, we're going to have some more strategic communication. Hopefully we'll be more effective around what the project is doing. And this is all going to tie into that eventually. Now, as far as the issue itself is concerned, I'll give you all a second to read it.
The blog post I did that adapted my Microsoft Ignite Australia talk on Habitat might be a good foundation for this. It needs to be updated for the new version of Habitat, but could be helpful.
Yeah, so I think this is another thing that Liz is putting, like Liz and I can't remember who else is working on this, but I think they're planning to renovate the tutorial, the entire system from the ground up.
Gotcha.
However, Liz might not know about that now. Like, that might be really good context for her.
Yeah, I will communicate it.
Nice.
So for now, I mean, like, we're planning to do this. So I'll just put it in accepted minor, since it's work that we already know we are definitely going to do. Is Liz in our... No, she's not. Okay. We can get her assigned to it later. All right.
Actually, I think she is, but she might not have her name. I think there is a GitHub user, but I can't remember it offhand now.
Okay. I'll try and find her and attach it to her later. All right. 2061.
Well, based on the heading, I would not be surprised if this is a straight up bug right now. Yep. Yes, we will need to fix this. So kind of what's behind here is with our multi-service supervisor, or the refactoring that we did, a lot of the work internally was getting within the supervisor itself as sort of like the code base, is teasing apart what the supervisor itself is, which we call, like, internally it's the manager that kind of boots up and runs the services, and then getting everything related to what the service does into like a concern that's only the service. So there was a lot of code that, like, the supervisor and the packages booting into services was all kind of the same. This was, I think, another edge thing of, because now with the supervisor, you can basically like hot load, like after the supervisor started, you could load a service in or unload it during the run cycle. So we've got a little more like service booting behavior that we tried to hit most of it, but this was clearly another one that, like, this is a check. Unfortunately, I think it's in the main loop of the supervisor, when it should more be in like the booting behavior of the service. So we just need to probably move, hopefully, a function somewhere, and that'll hopefully do it.
Excellent. All right, two more. 2065. So Nathan ran into this while he was, I think originally while he was like prepping for the webinar we did last week.
That's probably right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I realized we really made Nathan's day probably really fun by releasing something the day before.
Yeah, though I will say the workshop went great. It actually was. I think the multi-service supervisor stuff just made a lot of what we do in the workshop that much cleaner and more straightforward. So luckily, the happy path for this was like we basically we had a baked-in failure in that workshop. And,
oh crap! Yeah.
yeah, and it was around this, and then of course like he ran into this, so we just cut the baked-in failure out and just did happy path past it.
Well, that's perfect because now it's repro. This is again another thing that is like it's a responsibility of the service and checks it needs to do. That right now is probably in the main loop of the supervisor, and unfortunately, the supervisors doesn't have a good recovery because our assumption before was this is when the service boots up. So if we can't like get it booted up, we can just kill everybody, and we don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah. Would you be willing to leave a comment there to that effect, Fletcher?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is probably we've got 3 or 4 of these sort of related things that we've got so far. This is basically our like bug fix list for the supervisor.
Yeah. And I don't know, was it the one? Oh crap! Now that I closed the query out, 1 second.
2061.
Yeah, was that it?
Yeah, that was Adam Leff's with it's a variant of the same kind of. Yeah.
Cool. I also wanted to make sure I couldn't remember whether or not we had we already had comments on it, but we do, so we're good. I just want to make sure that Nathan knows that we've touched this and looked at it. Hello, and there we go. We'll give Fletcher a second to write that comment, and then it's two. I guess Stephen must be busy today.
He's at the PowerShell Summit.
Ah, that explains it.
Yep.
So more serialization issues with package path 4. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
It is.
If that's how you want to describe it.
So this has been a very interesting part of our supervisor code base, which effectively is just like template rendering kind of at the end of the day with a reasonably large data structure. We still keep finding these little things, and Stephen keeps coming to the rescue there, and then he has more context, so he's like, I'll help out next time. So he's very, very graciously helping out, I think, with this as well.
Yeah, he did a lot of that work for package path 4, so he knows it very well, which is good. It's good that he hasn't forgotten it yet. Yeah, I mean, it's a legitimate bug. It's something that we should probably fix. Let's see what Stephen's last update was. All right, so it looks like Stephen is actually working on it. So I'll put it under...
I think they may have been pairing or being in synchronous communication a little bit around this.
Yeah. I think he worked with him with Justin this morning a while. So I put it in accepted minor, and I'm going to put a heart on this and a heart on this. Yeah, anyways, I'm not sure. Like right now, if they're working on it, I would assume that they'll probably get it done, and if they need any support, we can help them. But we'll put it in accepted minor, since if they can't get it done, it is something that we need to do, right? But I don't expect that. Whoops, wrong thing. All right, sweet. So that is all that we've got in regards to the issues for the week that have not been sorted. I'm going to pull the pull requests up and make sure that we're not missing anything here that hasn't been looked at. This is the PR for the service bindings. I don't know if he's flagged this as complete. Matt, you looked at this earlier. Do you have any insight into the review that you did?
Oh, you're muted.
I just realized I was muted. I was going to say not really. So he addressed my one kind of just semantic issue that I had. I wanted to look at it just a little more closely, just because I'm paranoid about just yeah, it looks good, and pushing stuff for the supervisor, just because we don't really have great integration tests around that, and I wanted to just take a closer look before I hit the acceptance test, or anybody else is welcome to as well. But
my really quick read, like, that actually looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Next step for me is I really want to see that work by building it out. Yeah. But it looks like it's in about the right place, I think, and seems to be doing about the right thing. Yeah.
So I don't think we have anything else that we haven't touched as far as PRs on the core code. So let's do this. We don't need to fill up 30 minutes of dead air with nothing, but if you all wouldn't mind just kind of going through where you're at on your in-flight work and some of the goals that you've got over the next, I guess, for the next week, we can kind of record that and get that out there for people. And whoever wants to go first, if you just want to talk a couple minutes about what you're working on, that would be awesome.
I can start. So I think I'm doing the same thing that I said I was doing last time, which was getting packages moved from Redis to Postgres. But the thing I can say this time is that I'm basically done as of like 5 minutes ago. So I may pitch in over on Nell's side, maybe see if there's anything I can do with channels. Yeah, we're just, both Nell and I are working on getting all that depot data into Postgres.
I'll go ahead and follow on that. Yep, doing that, getting channels stored in Postgres rather than in memory. So far, listing channels and creating channels appears to work, but I want to do some more end-to-end testing on it. Paired with Adam yesterday and today on getting his end-to-end testing suite working, and we realized doing that in a Docker container on a Mac is awful. It takes forever. So right now I'm spinning up a Linux VM and am just going to do it there natively, which I think will lead to a lot less pain.
Nice. So if it's helpful, Nell, we've got in our building MD doc, there's at least some Scratch instructions and some rough shell scripts that you may be able to run depending on which Linux. That was kind of the idea. I had to do the same thing. I'm doing a lot of my day-to-day stuff in a VMware like Arch Linux environment because it just does run a little bit faster.
And Adam shared me the one he uses for his, so yeah, in good shape. And then once that's set up, continuing with that work and looking forward to working with you on that, Matt. I think what would be especially helpful is there's some channel API commands that list that do stuff with packages. I would love to help with that.
That was actually what I was thinking the same thing. Cool.
Yeah. Awesome. And that is it for me. Someone else can go.
Yeah, I can go next. I'm working on the event serve stuff. Currently trying to integrate it with the supervisor, and yeah, just kind of I separated the client out into its own crate, and just mostly trying to make that work end to end with the supervisor. Getting closer. I just joined the team a couple days ago, and I'm working on making a bunch of functional updates to the depot UI and the public website. So that's what I'm working on, just getting my feet wet with that and improving that experience.
I guess I missed last week. So what I've kind of was just wrapping up was a lot of the multi-service supervisor work. So most of what's landed in the release last week, the 020 release. So I've sort of have an eye for these bugs, which I kind of suspected there might be a couple. So these are ones that I think we can deal with reasonably quickly, and I might roll a little bit of my time into helping with that. But where I'm kind of falling back to these days is helping out with some of the scaffolding work. So this is meant for largely for like the when you're building an app or a service, largely like your own. So think about like an application developer working on a Python app or a Go app or something like that. Is how can we make the act of like writing your plan to describe how to build that as simple and easy and straightforward as possible, catering to your specific needs. So we already have some of that work has already landed and been released, and so we're still kind of iterating on that. So Ryan's been doing most of that work to date, and I'm kind of coming in and looking at some of the. I'm just putting my former like Ruby Rails developer hat back on and kind of jumping back in in that role and seeing what
bring
is
back
the
memories from when we worked. Bring back memories from when we worked together before, Fletcher.
It's absolutely. So I was telling my wife that in previous jobs, places like Heroku would have been sort of like the competition or like the UX standard, and I kind of feel like, and I'm in a similar boat again. I'm back to deploying Rails apps. So it's quite fun and a little scary.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm just the last 2 days for me have really just been spent doing some administrivia around various governance things. So one of those things being that like we want to change some of the ways that we communicate a little bit to be, like I mentioned earlier, a little bit more strategic, a little bit quicker and more agile. So I spent the last 2 days building a blog that will hopefully kind of shim into the website, allow community members or anybody on the team to be able to just open PRs to publish blog posts, which will be great. And that I'm hoping once that's done, I will never have to go back to touching CSS and slim templates ever again, because I am just not the guy for web dev. I'm just not. So that's what I've got. So aside from that, we can go ahead and we'll finish out early a little bit this week. It's nice to be kind of caught up on the issues. Maybe next week, what we'll start to do is also to go and look. I'll kind of prep in advance and make sure that we're not that there's a point in doing it. But maybe next week we'll also check the issues in the core plans repo, because I think one of the things that we haven't done an exceptional job as a team of doing is making sure that the packages are all in healthy, sane states. And I know that like some of us have, but I think by and large, I don't think it's the whole team. So just being able to kind of expose some of that, I think, to the rest of the team members will be a really good thing. So you can kind of see what, I guess, more or less what it feels like to develop a bunch of packages that make up Linux, which I will not put a label on that, or what you would call that, just for sanity's sake. But so maybe we'll do that next week. This week we'll finish up early. Thanks everybody for watching, and thanks all of you who could make it to help with the triage. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week.